And welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Just Parlays show here at the Max Wagers Network. I'm your co-host, Sky Reichel, and joining me, as always, is parlay expert Chris King. And together, we got a lot on the card. We finally finished the NFL divisions, finished college football conferences. We have actual games now, so this is going to be mostly a college football weekend preview show, mixed in, of course, with some baseball and Chris's parlays. But Chris, how's it going with you? How was your Thursday? How do you enjoy college football week 1.5?
Week 1.5 is a lot better than week 0. I'll tell you that much. Granted, we still saw a lot of one-sided games, like you and I were just talking about. There are a few exciting games went down the stretch. From the parlay perspective, it was good. We had a couple 4-teamers hit yesterday. One was 16-1, another one was 10-1. So it was a good day for people on the premium side, all three of them, or whatever there is that exists. But it was not too bad of a showing. Like I said, there's a couple entertaining games, a lot of blowouts.
Yeah, it seemed like it was really kind of what we expected, which was teams laying a bunch of points would probably win but not cover. That seemed to be the general theme of yesterday's action. Of course, my play today was a team that got 36.5, only allowed 38, and still did not cover, which is absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, a lot of teams were laying big numbers and weren't even close. Fresno was laying a big number. San Jose State almost lost the game to end the day. Akron was laying a lot of points. You had Bryant getting points. I know that was Rye's upset pick. Really tough one there for you, Rye, because Bryant should have won the game.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of teams won but didn't cover.
Toledo was giving 47 and only scored 37.
I live bet Toledo first quarter -6.5. I don't want to talk about it. They had 3 drives against Long Island. After I bet it, they scored 3 combined points. That Toledo team is atrocious. The fact that they're favored to win the MAC is comical. They will not win anything. That team is awful. So that was my main takeaway from yesterday's action. Toledo's not going to make the conference title game. That was my takeaway. That team is really bad.
I think that some of it was, as Steen would say, they were playing with their food too much. They knew Long Island wasn't going to beat them. They weren't going to be a threat.
Oh, the defense was good, but no, first quarter, first half, they were trying to throw the ball. They were trying to run the ball. They couldn't do anything. They got stuffed on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 in the first quarter against LIU. Really? No, I've seen Toledo. I saw them last year. They're the same team. Don't even bother. It's not going to happen. They're not good enough, I'm telling you.
Well, you got to remember Akron plays in that division, and they had to go to overtime to beat St. Francis.
But Akron, we know, is bad. Toledo is favored to win the conference. There are layers to this.
True. I'm just saying that when you start weeding out teams in the East. Or wait, is Toledo? No, Toledo's in the West, right?
Honestly, forget about the actual divisions. If you want to evaluate the entire MAC conference yesterday, not good. Central Michigan really let Spencer Sanders go for 400-plus yards and 6 touchdowns. I know they covered the game. I get it. You gave up 58 points to Oklahoma State. Akron almost lost to an FCS school at home. And Toledo looked underwhelming against LIU. And Ball State was atrocious. The MAC might be terrible.
Yeah, Ball State was, I said if there was one team that I was going to take that had the big line to cover, I said it would be Tennessee. And Ball State looked, like you said, they were a train wreck.
The MAC was a disaster yesterday. So if you want to talk about some trends or maybe following conferences and keeping an eye on these out-of-conference games for the first 2-3 weeks, blindly fading the MAC might be the move because no team that I really saw yesterday impressed me. And the only reason why Central Michigan covered is because Oklahoma State took a nap halfway through the 3rd quarter.
Hey, but you take those where you can get them.
Oh, you do, but I'm talking about just the eye test. Were you impressed by any of the MAC teams yesterday? Because I thought they all looked awful.
No, I think what turned that game for Central Michigan was when they gave up the safety, and then they gave up 2 touchdowns in 3 seconds after that, and it was all downhill from there. I looked at halftime and it was 40. Oklahoma State had 40-something.
Yeah, they got 41 in the first half. They were down 30 and change. And yes, I know that Central Michigan covered. Once again, 58 points to a Spencer Sanders-led offense? Really?
But on the same token, are you concerned at all about Oklahoma State's defense that they let Richardson throw for 424? I know some of it came in garbage time, but still, that's a lot of yards to be given up against a smaller conference school when you play in a conference with teams that throw the ball all over the place all the time.
Oh, we didn't think that Oklahoma State was going to be a very good team this season. We thought they would be decent, probably 8 or 9 wins. I thought that was the expectation that we had for this team. Nothing really surprised me because we liked Central Michigan plus the points in that game because we thought Richardson could pick apart the secondary. And he did. So that part wasn't surprising. It was the fact that Central Michigan's defense was that bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
That was my main takeaway, though, for week 1 or whatever you want to call the Thursday action. The MAC kind of sucks. I'm just going to throw that out there. The MAC was really not good in any capacity yesterday.
And, of course, Anthony Manzano asking you, should you take the over or under for Tyler Van Dyke throwing 4,900 yards and 55 touchdowns? I know you're playing in the – I'm hoping he's joking because I don't think Miami's going to throw for that many yards.
I was going to say, does he have like Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator now or something? Because the only people putting up those numbers are like Burrow that one year. It's not something you see in 12 games of a college season.
Or Bailey Zappi.
Yeah. Also, Cristobal, we know, is not exactly great at maximizing the talent at quarterback. We saw the Herbert situation in Oregon, which in hindsight is malpractice because they had a Ferrari and they were driving him at 20 miles an hour. Like, it was really a really poorly done operation there. He brought it up because I mentioned on Morningwood, if you want to look for a sleeper Heisman candidate, I mentioned Van Dyke at 28-1, solely on the premise of Miami's actual competition or their schedule is not that bad. Pitt won the game yesterday. I was not overly impressed. I think Miami could make the conference title game. So I think Van Dyke could put himself into a decent amount of high-profile games late in the year where maybe his odds drop to like 15-1 at some point in the season. So I mentioned Van Dyke at 28-1. You have a thought?
I mean, he's obviously probably the best, if not number one, in the top 2 quarterbacks in that conference. The question is, like you said, will they get enough marquee games down the stretch, or is that conference going to be so bad that nobody's going to give a rat's ass?
Well, my point is
to get into the conversation.
I think Miami should make the conference title game, from what I saw from Pitt yesterday.
Yeah, and here's the question about that Pitt game: did Pitt win the game, or did West Virginia lose the game?
Yes. That's how I'm going to go with it because it's always a mix of both. You can say either way, even in choke jobs. Well, this team did this. Well, the other team still had to make plays.
Yeah, but Pitt didn't make any plays in the. Narduzzi talked about how he wanted to run the ball, and sure, they ran the ball 38 times. The problem is they ran the ball for 2 yards a carry.
Yeah, they couldn't run. Slovis wasn't great either. It was okay at the end, but also JT Daniels is a quarterback that a lot of us think is pretty mediocre.
True.
Is that a fair summary
of
him? He kind of torched Pittsburgh's defense. Can we talk about that for a second? Because what did Pittsburgh really do well at yesterday?
They got a pick 6 with the game tied with 3 minutes to go.
And the guy was wide open. It went right through his hands. But
right. Well, exactly what they did good. That's what I'm saying. They got a pick 6.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you want to look at the takeaways I had for the ACC, I don't think Pitt's got any chance in hell of making the conference title game. They didn't look good enough to me.
No, I agree with you. The issue with Pitt, we talked about how West Virginia brought back probably one of the best starting lines in the Big 12 on the offensive side of the ball, and Pitt's pass defense was horrible last year. Didn't look any better yesterday.
No. So at the end of the day, think that Pitt's probably going to lose a couple conference games. Some of them they could win. I think Miami's more talented on paper. And even though I usually wait a year or two to pick a brand new head coach showing up for them to actually make a deep run, it really is a pretty favorable schedule for Miami in that division, especially. I think they should make the conference title game. So I mentioned Van Dyke as he might end up having Miami, in the top 10 at some point this year?
Potentially.
Maybe top 5 if they really run the table early on. It's possible.
What I found entertaining yesterday was when we were on the show yesterday, the Tennessee line was 35.5. Apparently, everybody watched the show and then went and bet on Tennessee because that line closed at 43.5.
Still cash, by the way.
Yeah, still covered, but still an 8-point shift. And kickoff was what, 7 o'clock, 7:30?
And the total as well. Did you enjoy that field goal with 2 minutes to go, down like 60 points to send the game over?
Well, they wanted to make sure that the fans went home happy, and Ball State's fans, because Ball State, they knew they were going to win that game. They had to give their fans something. Maybe they had a thing where if you score 10 points, you get free stuff at the snack bar on campus or something.
Yeah, it could be, but Tennessee dominated. They are one of the only big favorites that actually covered. The favorites have won every game so far, but in America, the one exception, of course, was the Dublin game because Nebraska lost as a favorite. Does it surprise you at all that the favorites are 28-1?
Well, I mean, you have to look at how bad some of these matchups have been in week 0 and week 1. I mean, we're not talking. Look at all the FCS schools getting beat up, and that'll change. I think over the weekend, I think we'll see some of these other teams pull out wins. Boise State, who knows? Maybe they'll go into Corvallis and beat Oregon State.
And the reason why I brought it up is because JC asked me if the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks covered the number yesterday. They did not. They got their brains beaten in. However, it was a close game for about a quarter, and then Arizona State killed them after that. But you asked me for a long shot who had a chance to win. I gave out a team that got their ass kicked. You know how many underdogs had a shot to win yesterday? 0, because none of the underdogs won yesterday. So no matter what I would have picked, I would have been wrong. So,
well, I mean, Bryant played pretty well.
They should have won the game. They should have won. I thought St. Francis should have won, but they didn't. So when it came to picking a dog, no matter what you picked, you lost.
True. That is true. But, I mean,
you could have hedged, but still.
Yeah, that's true. And we're talking – the one game we haven't talked about was the marquee matchup with Gus Johnson on the call on Fox Sports, Penn State and Purdue, in a game that went back and forth, the whole way because both teams made stupid plays at the wrong time.
By the way, Bill asking if Bryant won. They did not. They lost in overtime.
38-37.
Yep. They went to overtime. They lost. Not fun if you had Bryant money line. I know Rye was one of those people. That's rough. The main takeaways from the Purdue-Penn State game, I jinxed the crap out of Brom. I jinxed him so badly.
You notice James hasn't shown up in the comments yet because he was touting Purdue yesterday too.
Well, Purdue should have won. So, I can understand touting. I liked Purdue in the game yesterday. They should have covered. But either way, I basically said I don't have Brom on my shit list. I think he's a decent head coach. I don't know what the hell he was doing the entire fourth quarter. I don't know what that even was. They were leading the entire fourth, and they just refused to run any clock. I get you're a passing offense. At least call a screen play. Get your guy an easy completion. What are you doing? You're draining a minute off the clock when you need to drain 4. You have to run the ball. What are you doing?
Now, if you remember yesterday, I said, after Scott said Brom wasn't on his shit list, I said, wait till you come back tomorrow about this time, and all of a sudden Brom will be on Scott's shit list because Purdue was going to blow the game.
But that's the thing. I feel like my shit list is usually fair. I don't really try to bias coaches because of past jobs or because of where they're coaching. I try to be fair. Most of it's an eye test. You see a game here and you wonder, well, is this well coached? Is this not? Brom had one of the worst fourth quarters I've seen in a long time. That was rough. What, they scored 0 points in the entire fourth quarter?
No, they got 7 because they had a pick 6 that put them ahead.
They had 0 offensive points in the fourth quarter. Brom's an offensive guy. That's inexcusable.
And O'Connell barely hit 50% of his throws. In fact, he was right at 50, 29-58.
I'm saying that cannot happen. Now, Purdue's defense did choke in the end of the game, mostly the end of the first half. I still can't believe they gave up that 60-something yard touchdown. That's embarrassing. If I was a coach, the defense is running gassers for at least 5 minutes. That's got to be punishment worthy. That's a joke. But It came down to Purdue's inability to close the game because of some really stupid play calling down the stretch. And Brob's an offensive guy. So he was not on my shit list. I got to at least consider him. We're under council advisement. We're trying to find out if he's going to qualify or not. But yeah, I don't like a lot of coaches because you see a lot of coaches in college who are considered pretty good, and they're still well below par from where you want them to be.
Now, were you surprised when Purdue got the ball back with under a minute to go when O'Connell got sacked and then they completed that pass? They didn't call a timeout?
I don't know how Jones catches a 20-something yard pass and you don't burn a timeout and you take an extra 20 seconds off the clock. It made no sense. The only play you have is the Hail Mary. That's it. You're wasting 20 seconds to sprint to the line for nothing. It was just awful execution down the stretch. And
yeah, they had 2 timeouts. I was like, why aren't they calling one? I'm just watching the clock around. I'm like, okay.
They wasted like 15 seconds. The whole final 8 minutes, pretty much post pick 6, was a coaching clinic on what not to do. It was really bad by Brom. Really.
The next episode of What Not to Do, watch Jeff Brom's fourth quarter.
But what did he do right in the entire quarter? Their only points were a pick 6.
True. And like I said, I didn't understand why Purdue kept trying to blitz, because they blitzed on the pass that they picked up 30 yards on to put him down in Purdue territory. The guy missed a tackle. There was nobody there. And then they blitzed on the touchdown pass. I guess the linebacker, like I said, he thought that the back was gonna chip him or something, and he went right past him. And then the linebacker's like, "Oh shit!" And the ball's over his head, and the guy's walking in the end zone.
It was. I'll tell you what. It was the all-time microcosm of Sean Clifford's college career.
That's a $5 word there.
I'm just saying, though. Microcosm is one of the biggest words I'll use all month. And I used it early because we're in really, really beginning of September. But Sean Clifford was exactly what I said he was. He was awful for the majority of the game, and yet somehow he's managed to be successful in college where he wins a bunch of games. I don't know how he does it. That was a great final drive by him, so props there. Clifford was not particularly good in this game, and that's why I picked Purdue to win.
And you're right, because the thing that Franklin did on that drive is exactly what you said Brom should have done, and that was throw screens. They had 3rd and 2. He threw a screen pass for 6 or 7 yards to move the chains. They had a couple other screen passes in there that were set up. That's all they had to do.
Get your guy easy completions. That's it. And Clifford, we saw what happens when he tries to make bigger throws. It goes badly 80% of the time.
True.
So they had a great drive. They played to Clifford's strengths. Took them about 3.5 quarters to do it, but they finally did.
Better late than never.
So there you go. But that was my takeaway. I thought it was be competitive. I thought it was going to be pretty much the exact same game flow. The only difference was in my breakdown, I did not picture Sean Clifford leading a game-winning drive. So if Penn State stalls out, I'm 100% right on everything I had in that game.
True.
So I believe I saw the card relatively well yesterday. I liked West Virginia to keep it close, potentially win the game. You can argue they should have won the game because they really also fell apart in the fourth quarter of that game. The pick 6 didn't help either. That was brutal. But, yeah, I feel like I saw the card relatively well, and a couple results didn't go my way. But that was how I viewed the game, and the Purdue game was a good example of that.
Rye saying that Clifford ruined his under. Andrew was with you and had Purdue. Lex still chanting about Central Michigan.
I would be chanting about it, too. You gave up 58 points to a Power 5 school, and you still cover 20.5. That's impressive. That's something.
JC saying that he likes Arizona and San Diego State tomorrow because the Wildcats defense is horrible. You could have said just Arizona is horrible. You didn't have to just say defense.
The only issue you run into with overs for San Diego State is the pace of play or lack thereof. It was the same reason why I liked, New Mexico State and really the under as well in the Minnesota game. It's because even when they score, they take 6 minutes off the clock. So
with Arizona, they might not tackle. So I mean, they
that's
could
what happened
actually
in the
score
Minnesota
faster.
game. New Mexico State couldn't tackle. If they were able to even be mediocre at tackling, they would have lost the game like 30-0 instead of 38-0. I found that betting line fascinating. There's a lot of money coming in on Arizona, which I thought was a little weird because Arizona hasn't been good in several years. Got some transfers, maybe they'll be better. I don't like San Diego State as an overall team this year, but are you surprised that money's come into that degree on Arizona?
I am. I mean, Arizona's not a good team. I'm surprised the line's only 6 or 6.5, given how poorly Arizona's played. Like you said, the Kevin Sumlin era was not entertaining by any stretch of the imagination.
F- era.
Yeah.
Bad.
And these teams played last year. San Diego State won 38-14.
I can
And,
understand your point for the over. I'd probably lean that way. I'm not a fan of San Diego State's quarterback. He's not exactly known for throwing. I mean,
true.
he was so bad that Virginia Tech got rid of him. Virginia Tech hasn't had a good quarterback since I don't even know the last time they had a good quarterback. I know Hooker was decent,
They're
but
going to say Michael Vick.
I was going to say Tyrod. It's been a long time.
To be fair, last year San Diego State ran for 271 against Arizona, and that game was at McHale Stadium in Tucson. So I'm not sure that Arizona's going to hang in here. They ran the ball 55 times last season, ran it right down Arizona's throat.
For me, I'm going to probably lean to San Diego State anyway, because until Arizona shows me anything, I'm going to assume that San Diego State's going to take out the trash. It'll be competitive. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I do think San Diego State will be able to dictate enough with the ground game to get the job done. And I do think if you want to look at San Diego State, I mean, they had Brookshire last year, who was awful at quarterback.
True.
And yet against Arizona, he went 10 for 14 for 2 touchdowns. They let Brookshire torch them, like really.
So you're saying Braxton Burmeister might light it up?
Well, the issue you run into, though, for San Diego State is they lost their running back because Bell went to the NFL. So you're hoping that it's a next man up philosophy there. They can find a way through it. I think I'm leaning San Diego State. As for the over, I'd probably lean that way. But the pace is going to drive you nuts.
True. I'm trying to think who San Diego State's running back is now. Oh, now it's another Bell. Now it's Chance Bell.
Yep. Who is okay. I mean, he was the backup last year. Greg Bell was significantly better, but he's fine.
Yeah, I remember when Greg Bell played for the Bills in the 80s. Different Greg Bell, of course.
Different Greg Bell, yeah. But I'm trying to think of the best way to actually go about going through the college football action because we got a lot of games to talk about.
Maybe we should talk about the good games.
I was going to say I'm going to be doing a college football show with Steen right after this at around 3:15, recording time at least. So should be fun. Looking forward to getting through that. I'm going to provide full disclosure. There's a lot of games. I basically hated all of them. I think it's a really crappy week one. I think it's a really, really crappy week one. Are you thrilled with the card? There are a couple of games that you might be intrigued by, but for betting, I don't know how many good games are on the card. Like, you don't know anything about any of these teams.
But you're going to fade Hawaii.
I actually don't know if I am. I think Western Kentucky should win the game handily. However, if you look at the weather, there is about 18-mile-per-hour winds. So people are going to blindly bet the over. The weather might be tricky in that matchup. And Western Kentucky also really struggled defensively against Austin Peay. It's not like they look good in week one. Hawaii just looks so bad in a standalone game that people just assume that Hawaii is going to get blown out again. I think Western Kentucky will win this game and cover. Do I think they're going to win by 40? No, I don't think they're going to.
Yeah, but you just said you think they're going to cover.
No, I said that I don't want to bet it because of the weather factors, and I don't want to bet the over as a result. Hawaii's bad, but people just blindly think based on line movement, this game's moved like 9 points because of game one. I just think personally it's a matchup where Hawaii is terrible. I'm just not high on Western Kentucky at all. I thought Reed had a pretty mediocre game against an FCS school in week 1. They couldn't really run the ball. I wasn't overly impressed. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I mean, we're also talking about a Hawaii team that made Vanderbilt look like Ohio State.
That's why I'm picking Western Kentucky, because they gave up 63 to Vandy. I'm just saying with the weather factors, I'm not blindly assuming this game's going to reach 80 points.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's going to reach. I'm not saying it's going to reach 80. I'm just saying that you're going to take Western Kentucky and give the points because Hawaii is just horrible.
Yeah. Wait, James, which line has moved? Are you talking to me or are you talking to Earl right now? I like that JC appreciates me being transparent. I'm just being honest. You see a lot of turnover, especially now with the transfer portal. So you don't have teams waiting a year to learn a system. They're just jumping right in with both feet. And it's just like, all right, this team is now this compared to this team. Why? I don't know. We think they are. It's like, all right, cool. It's pretty difficult when you start college to try to accurately predict what you're going to see from a lot of new faces and new places. So when it came down to the week 1 card, to be honest, I kind of struggled to find 3 plays for the show. I ended up getting 3 plays, but are there any plays? You might save them for premiums, but do you love the card? Because I didn't see many games that totally interested me.
I like the Houston UTSA game. I think that's
a fun game. I'll watch
that. Oregon, I think, is probably going to get stomped.
I think they should, but Georgia did lose a lot from last year's team. I think Georgia should win, though. I'm not a Bo Nix guy at all. I never have been. But if you really want to look at some betting lines here, there's been a ton of line movement on a lot of games. So you're not sure if you're too late to the party or if you should go contrarian now because you're picking up extra value. I don't know. I think
one game where you see there's been a ton of line movement is Nevada and Texas State. Nevada opened as an 8-point favorite. Now they're an underdog by 1.5
at home.
At home.
Yeah. Wait, what do you say they're an underdog at?
They're an underdog by 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5.
Yeah, they were favored by 8 originally.
So I actually am going to have a play in that game on the joint show. So I'll save my actual thoughts there. It's a weather game. You have roughly 17-mile-per-hour winds.
And but Texas State can't throw, so.
No, but that's the point. So I actually kind of like Nevada in that game. I think that even though it basically goes into what I said about Hawaii. It's an immediate overreaction. People watch Nevada look awful against New Mexico State. I get it. They did not look good at all. Cox is not a good quarterback. They don't have any other options.
But he's tall.
I do think that Nevada's defense at home in a lower scoring game with the weather, I don't think Texas State should be favored in this game on the road. I mean, that's a little bit excessive. They got.
Well, but we said Nevada's bad.
They're bad. Do you think Texas State's good? Texas State hasn't been good, arguably, ever.
How dare you insult the Texas State Armadillos?
I'm just saying, they got Hatcher, a quarterback, who was successful somewhat in Blake Anderson's system over there at Arkansas State. Then last year, he didn't really do much. I thought he was mediocre at best. Now he's moving on to Texas State. Their offensive line sucks. Their ground game's good. They don't exactly have many veteran weapons. I don't trust a team that's going to need to throw the ball a lot with a lot of wind. So I'm leaning to Nevada because at least they can run the football. And Texas State lost a bunch of key pieces from last year's team. I am going to lean to Nevada at home, but I don't feel great about it. But it's an overreaction because people look at Nevada and say, well, we got to bet Texas State down to a minus. Why do you have to do that? Texas State's not going to be a good team.
Well, they need to make it entertaining.
I guess. But, I mean, who are you picking in that game? Because the line movement suggests Texas State might just kill this team. But I really don't know why they're favored on the road in this spot when they haven't played a game yet.
Well, like you said, because Nevada looked bad last week. Nevada lost a slew of guys. They're still breaking in the new coaching system. The best thing you can say about their quarterback is he's tall. Yeah, that's like the replacements. The only good thing I can say about our best offensive weapon is that he's wiry.
Mm-hmm.
What the shit is that?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically all you can say about Nate Cox. He's tall. At least you shouldn't get any passes knocked down at the line of scrimmage. Because if you're 6'9" and you've got people knocking down your passes at the line, you've got more issues than we know.
I'm going to lean Nevada in that game. However, I do like the under, especially with the wind. Both teams aren't exactly good offensively anyway.
That's an understatement.
But now you're going to be limiting the offensive upside in terms of big playability because of the wind and how you might not be able to actually throw the ball. And it's not even the wind that's across. It's the wind where there's one team going with it and one against it.
Yep.
So one half you're going to have basically a lost cause going one way and potentially a lost cause the other way because you'll overthrow everyone by 20 yards. So I like.
So you throw a lot of screen passes and watch Nevada not tackle.
Pretty much, but I do think if you want to look at the line movement in that game as well, there's been a bunch of movement towards the under. It's gone from 56.5 to 51. I think that's warranted. So it's also tricky to jump in when you've missed about a 7-point line move or like a 5-point line move on the total or a 10-point line move on the spread. But I'll lean to Nevada. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction at this point. I like the under as my favorite play in that game. But beware of week 0 overreactions because they are everywhere.
True. I've noticed one thing, too. There's been a big line shift in the Kentucky game because Rodriguez, of course, won't play. So that line's gone from Kentucky by 20.5 over Miami, Ohio to 14.5.
I mean, Miami, Ohio was my pick to win the MAC.
I was going to say, I know Chuck Martin's a good coach. I just don't know. Well, and I see it's rebounded a little bit. Caesars now has it at 16.5, but it's still 14.5 at FanDuel, and then PointsBet and DraftKings have it at 15.
I'll ask you this. How many points do you think Kentucky needs to score to cover?
I mean, Kentucky was pretty decent defensively last year. But I think you'd probably still have to what? You'd have to say, 31?
I was going to say 31, 35.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Because, I mean, like you said, Miami, Ohio got a lot of experience on that team with the other Gabbert. Speaking of, which Gabbert is better, the one playing now or the one that's backing up in Tampa Bay?
The one in Tampa was better because in college he put up huge numbers. But the other one's not bad. Miami, Ohio was my dark horse candidate or my pick to win the conference. But we saw how bad the MAC looked yesterday. I like the under. I find it weird Rodriguez is out and the total still went from like 49.5 to 55 right now. You just said Kentucky might cover at 35. Miami, Ohio doesn't exactly have many game breakers offensively. Right. Gabbert's more of a game manager, and they drain a lot of clock. I like the under.
Lot. Yeah, plus you got some rain in the forecast tomorrow too. About a 70% chance of precipitation there.
I just think that
Lexington.
Too high.
What about some of the marquee games? You got Utah going down to the Swamp to play Florida in Billy Napier's first game with the Gators. Do you give Florida any chance here? It's the first time they're an underdog in a home opener in about 800 years.
I think that the line is very, very fishy. We'll put it that way because Florida, as you said, is pretty much always favored at home, besides when they're playing Bama, potentially. But Utah is a very good team. They're our pick to win the Pac-12. We think that they're the best team in that conference. I am going to go with Utah. I don't typically like to go against an SEC team at home getting points that should be pretty good. But Napier was a solid coach in a group of 5 school. I need to see how he can recruit because Miami got a lot of very good recruits. And I know that Florida brought a lot of guys over from Lafayette. They were very good in the Sun Belt. I'm not sure how they're going to look against an elite defense in Utah. Utah just, for me, seems like the much more talented team. So I actually like the Utes there.
Yeah, I actually had to write this game, and I took Utah minus the points. You look at Florida, it's going to be Anthony Richardson. He wasn't super great last year, didn't play a ton.
He's athletic. Can he throw? Not really.
Pierce is gone, so now your top returning running back is Naquan Wright. He ran for 326 yards.
They still didn't recover from Tony leaving. The receiving core was not good last year.
Yep, they brought in Ricky Pearsall from Arizona State, but I don't know if he's going to be a factor. And you look at Utah. They've got those two tight ends with Queith and Kincaid. They've got Thomas in the run game. Rising did a fantastic job last year after Charlie Brewer decided, you know what, fuck this, I'm done. And they bring, I just don't have a ton of faith in Florida's offense doing anything, like you said, against Utah's defense. Even playing at home, I think Utah's going to win this one probably by at least a touchdown.
Yeah, I think so. Now, JC's, historically speaking, is right. The Pac-12 has not typically done well at SEC, on the road in these matchups. But I just think the spread should be higher. I think the value's on Utah. Utah is a proven commodity. We know Whittingham is a very good coach, and they got a lot of talent from last year's team back. Florida switched coaches. They were in turmoil, and they got a lot of guys to either transfer over or – the thing is, I don't think that everyone who transferred over is going to gel immediately with the guys that are already there. And Napier, once again, is a good coach, but it's a lot easier to do well in the Sun Belt than in the SEC. So I think that the spread, in my opinion, should be closer to Utah 4.5.
5? Yeah, I would say 5.
I'm going to go with Utah because I think this line's a bit short.
A couple other marquee games on the slate. Cincinnati, the darlings of the group of 5 last year until they got into the playoff and promptly got obliterated.
Oh, even in that one, they hung around. They couldn't do anything offensively, but they were okay against Bama.
Yeah, but I mean, they lost by 3 touchdowns in the end.
Yeah, 3 touchdowns going in. That means they covered the spread, I think. Right?
I'd have to look, but they go on the road. They go to Fayetteville in the middle of Sioux country to take on Sam Pittman's Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas, a good team last year. They won more games last season than they did in 2018 to 2020 combined. What do you make of Arkansas taking on this new Cincinnati team where Luke Fickell doesn't even know who's going to play quarterback? Is it going to be Ben Bryant? It's going to be the other guy. I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head. How do they replace the run game? How do they replace Alec Pierce? How do they replace Sauce Gardner?
Ritter,
Kobe Bryant. The Cincinnati have a prayer going into Fayetteville here?
I gave it out on VSiN. I got Arkansas -6. I think this line is disrespectful to Arkansas. And Pittman's a great coach. You just touched upon it. Jefferson's back. They have a good offensive line. The ground game's back as well. There's a difference between I'd say there's a difference between a group of 5 schools that go on a dream run. They have a great year. Hawaii to the Sugar Bowl. You have those random years where you win 12 games and you dominate. And then the year after, you lose a couple key pieces. And you don't fall apart, but you lose like 4 wins. And the reason is, and the reason why that doesn't happen to Bama and these other schools, because you're getting all these great recruits that will just fill the void. Cincinnati lost arguably its best quarterback in the history of the program, one of its best running backs in the history of the program. Pierce is a very good receiver, probably the best cornerback in its entire history, and Kobe Bryant's also a very good corner. They lost so much talent and so many veteran leaders on that team. And now I'm just supposed to expect Cincinnati to hit the ground running, as you said, with a no confirmed starting quarterback in SEC country on the road. I like Arkansas. I think they'll win this game by 10+.
Yeah, I like Arkansas. I mean, it's tough for them to get a lot of respect because they have to go through the gauntlet of the SEC West, where you got to deal with Alabama and you got to deal with Texas A&M and all those schools. But Sam Pittman has done a really good job putting that program together. I like Luke Fickell. He's done a good job in Cincinnati. But when you don't have like you said the other day last week about Hawaii, if you have 2 quarterbacks, if you have 3 quarterbacks, then you have no quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And that's where the Bearcats find themselves right now, along with all the other issues that you just touched on with, the running back and the receivers and the corners. And, how are they going to match up with Arkansas? And the answer is not very well.
Now, Cincinnati did fare well against Notre Dame last year. A reminder, though, to start the year, they also struggled against Indiana. So you can read into it any way you want. But I do think Arkansas should be favored by more, in my opinion, just based on how much talent Cincinnati lost. I think they're putting too much stock into the coaching staff and the ability to recruit similar level players, good luck trying to find another Ritter. That's all I'm saying.
A couple other games to touch on real quick. Scott, what do you think of Notre Dame going to the Horseshoe, take on C.J. Stroud and Ohio State?
I like the over in the game. I don't think you're going to see much defense at all. Ohio State hasn't had a good defense for a while. Notre Dame is projected to get killed in this game. But offensively, they have some weapons. So I like the over. I think we'll see a lot of points.
Do you think Do you think Notre Dame stays within 17?
I think it's where it should be. I'll assume Ohio State wins by like 23. But I'm not going to really touch the spread. I just like the total. I see a lot of points because we know Ohio State gets hyped up on defense every year, and it's usually extremely underwhelming.
This is very true.
So,
and we talked about a little bit about Oregon and Georgia. Dan Lanning gets to come back and face his former employer. Like you said, Bo Nix gets a chance to face Georgia after, spending the first part of his career at Auburn. How bad is Oregon going to get rolled in this game?
I think they're going to fare very, very poorly. I think that if you look at their overall roster, of course, they have a new coaching staff. They lost a lot of players. Bo Nix, a pretty good college quarterback. Too many mistakes. He has a couple highlight plays, but for every one highlight play, he has about 5 terrible plays. I think Georgia kills them. I think they'll win this game
21.
I was going to say 34-10.
Yeah, I can see it obviously being at least a 3-score game. I just don't have faith in Oregon's offense. And, they lost pieces on defense. Thibodeau's gone and all that too. And like you said, you're not a Bo Nix fan. I wasn't sold on Nix when he was at Auburn. He's not really surrounded with the greatest of weapons there either. So it's going to be an uphill climb for Oregon. I mean, he might have better success against the doormats of the Pac-12, but it's going to be a rough start for him.
Definitely true. And Georgia did lose a lot of key pieces from the defense last year. They also lost Cook. They lost Pickens offensively. So they are replacing players. If you want to take Oregon, consider the first half. I think as the game goes on, Georgia's going to dominate in the trenches. And that's going to be the story of the game. I think eventually Georgia breaks it open. You probably get a defensive score at some point because Nix will probably throw 3 picks. But I'm going to go with Georgia. I think they'll win this game eventually by 20+.
And our good buddy Bryce asking, what do you think of tonight's game with Virginia Tech and Old Dominion?
I mentioned this on Morning Wood. I actually like Dominion getting
because
the 6.
Because you hate Grant Wells?
I am not a Wells guy at all. But if you look at the weather, it's atrocious. Virginia Tech's offense isn't great. It's also a very weird scheduling spot where a Power 5 school basically scheduled a BS school at this point, and they're on the road. You don't see that often. I know last year Duke played against Charlotte in week 1, and Charlotte won outright. I like Old Dominion in that one. I find it weird based on the schedule that Virginia Tech just voluntarily went to Old Dominion for the opening game of a season. Isn't that a little weird?
Yeah, and that line is, depending on where you look, FanDuel has it at 5.5. If you go to Caesars has Old Dominion getting 7.5.
It means you can bet a middle blind win to get 2 key numbers.
That's true. I mean, we always talk about, shop around for the best odds out there to benefit you. And, that's a prime example right there.
I'll take the 7.5.
I figured you would.
You?
Yeah, I don't like Virginia Tech. They're a team in disarray. They weren't great last season. They got blown out in the bowl game by Maryland. Maryland scored 54 points against you. And we know how the Terps, not exactly an offensive powerhouse by any stretch of the imagination. I like Old Dominion. They played well down the stretch last year. Won their last, 5 or something like that in the regular season.
I like the under in that game as well. Based on the weather and Virginia Tech's offense, I think it's one of those classic games where I think it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly game, so I'll take the points. Old Dominion might win this outright. It wouldn't totally shock me, but I'm going to go with the under. I think you're going to see a really, really bad football game.
And in two random games that jump out to me, Scott. First, I know that they're playing an FCS school, but when's the last time you saw Kansas favored by 30-plus points against anybody?
It's been a long time, but that's the Lance Leopold effect. I believe that's what they call it,
That's why when he coached at Buffalo, I never saw Buffalo favored by 30 over anybody except maybe Akron.
Well, you kind of mentioned this yesterday. Of course, Kansas is a lot worse than Northern Illinois, but you're looking at a lot of these teams and they're laying like 40 points, and you're like, why the hell are they laying anything? Like, why 30 with Kansas? Like, that's.
And I mean, I was right about Northern Illinois because they were favored by 34 and a half, and they won by 7.
Yeah, the game was close. That's the point, though. So there's a lot of teams that you assume are just going to immediately just, destroy the opposition, and they kind of play with their food a little bit.
And finally, James Madison gets to make their debut as an FBS program. They're facing Middle Tennessee tomorrow at home. They're favored now by 4.5. They were originally favored by 7 when the line opens. Could the Dukes start off playing in the FBS?
They could. I mean, they have a solid roster. Middle Tennessee brings back a lot of people, mostly on offense, but I'm not exactly.
You didn't like them last year.
Exactly. They bring back a lot of pieces. I don't know how good the pieces are, but they got options. I don't like their coach, though. But
you don't like Rick Stockstill?
I do not. I think he's a bad coach.
Egad.
I will go on record. I saw the final sequence live of the first half against Army from 2 years ago, if you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, look it up. It is actually the dumbest minute I've ever seen from a head coach in any sport. I don't know what happened, but he's not a good coach. No. So it'll be close. You can make a case for Middle Tennessee on the money line if you think that the stage might be a little bit too big for James Madison right now. I'm going to lean to the points with James Madison. I think they'll win by 7.
What about your alma mater playing Illinois State?
What are they like?
I'm not sure if there's a number out for this one.
It doesn't matter. I don't have any thoughts. They usually do well. I don't have any thoughts. They usually do well.
33.5.
Sure. I'll take the under. I don't know. I don't have any thoughts on Wisconsin.
Game time temperature is supposed to be about 65 degrees with about a 50% chance of rain.
Look, if you want to lay 33 points with Graham Mertz, have fun. I'm not going to be one of those people. I'm just not going to be one of those people.
Wow. Selling out the alma mater.
You have a favorite play on tonight's card for college football? Because I think mine would probably lean to Michigan State.
Michigan State playing what? Western Michigan?
Yeah. They don't have any experience. They have a bunch of inexperienced quarterbacks. They only want to run the ball. I think Michigan State, even though they lost Walker and a couple pieces here and there, I really don't think Western Michigan's good defensively. I think Michigan State can score.
Well, of course they're not good defensively. They play in the MAC.
But I'm saying we saw how bad the MAC's defenses were yesterday. I think personally, Michigan State wins this game like 42-17.
Wow, so you think Western Michigan's going to score 17?
I think they're going to give up 40+. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I also like Illinois. I'm not sold on Indiana after last season, and I'm not sold that they're going to be any better this year. And, I don't understand why Duke is favored over anybody. I get Temple is bad, but come on. When's the last time Duke was good?
Yeah, it's one thing to be favored. It's another thing to be favored by roughly 10 points. I mean, being favored by 2 possessions in there is crazy. And we even thought that with Akron.
I took Temple with the points myself. I mean,
it's a little different because this is 2 FBS teams technically, and Akron was against an FCS. But Akron was against an FCS school, and you're looking at the line going, I understand that St. Francis isn't great, but I mean, Akron shouldn't be laying 17 against a high school team.
True.
So that's why you run into these spots where you think that the line might be a little bit crazy, and you might be able to find some value on the other side.
Yeah, Bryce is talking about BYU. Yeah, BYU in South Florida. That should be stomping, shouldn't it?
I'll lean BYU. There's been money on South Florida. They got a bunch of transfers. I don't think Scott can coach.
He can't.
So he's a coordinator at best. It's fine. We've seen a lot of coordinators struggle to be head coaches. BYU's good this year, man. and Hall is a really good quarterback. So I'm going with BYU. Give me the Mormons.
Yeah, I was taking BYU. I feel bad for, our former co-host and, now producer, Jim Williams, because that's his alma mater. We have fun beating up on South Florida on a regular basis. That's probably why Jim's not in the comments right now. He doesn't want to hear about South Florida getting shellacked again.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'll take BYU.
Yeah, I think that's kind of going to do it, though, for college because they do have other stuff to go through. But before we actually get into the the baseball card, we got to take care of some housekeeping. BetMGM has a great deal for all of you. For first-time users of their app or website, get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. All the information is in the show box. Check the age limits, and as always, bet responsibly. So, without further ado, let's get the show on the road. What are your favorite two-pick parlays for the day?
Well, first of all, I point out that Spencer Strider, he did us a solid yesterday. 16 strikeouts.
Give him Rookie of the Year. It's a done deal.
But yeah, that helped in the shot in the dark segment because we had 8 out of the 10 hit yesterday. Thanks a lot, Jose Ramirez.
Yeah, 8 of 10 though, solid.
Yeah. So knowing Lex, he picked one of the 2 that didn't hit out when he put his 7 together. But yeah, I like the Blue Jays today over the Pirates. It's Alek Manoah. I know he's only won once in his last 5 starts, but we're talking about Pittsburgh. They're starting Johan Oviedo, who they just called up from the minors.
Yeah, he's also not very good. He's been in the pros before. He just keeps getting sent down.
And there's a reason for that because, like you said, he sucks.
Yeah.
The Cardinals gave up on him for crying out loud. Oviedo in his career, he has 2 wins. They both came earlier this year. Don't like him. He's not going to last very long. Houston over the Angels, it's McCullers and Detmers. Anything you want to say about the Angels, Scott, other than they took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees when you bet on them?
They screwed me the one game I faded them. Actually, no, because I won the first game in that series. I just lost the second game. But yeah, the Yankees had one good hitting performance. It's fool's gold. The Yankees just lose to everybody right now. The Angels are still not a good team. Yeah, we're on the same page here. I think McCullers can pitch well in this spot.
Yeah, the Cardinals and the Cubs here. I'm taking Jordan Montgomery. I know he got roughed up a bit by Atlanta in his last start, but let's not forget that it was just last Monday. Seems like a lot longer than that, but August 22nd when Montgomery threw
99 pitches for a shutout.
Yep, a one-hitter in a 1-0 game that the Cardinals won at Wrigley Field, where Pujols homered on a pitch that was somewhere around his eyebrows.
Yep.
I think Monty can get the job done at Busch Stadium, much to the chagrin of me. But betting knows no favorite teams as far as that goes. So
I got the division once again. So the Brewers lost yesterday. Cardinals up 6.5 with about 30 games to go. I'll take a Cardinals win tonight.
And the Dodgers over the Padres. This game at Dodger Stadium. Yu Darvish with his uninspiring road splits taking on Dustin May. I know the Dodgers had to fly back after playing the Mets yesterday. But let's face it, this Padres team has not looked good.
I also like May. I think May's a pretty good pitcher.
Yeah, Lex said he drank too much and forgot to put in that bet. Well, tough break for you, Lex. That's what happens when you day drink just as steam. So we'll go to 4 for the show here. I've got the Mariners over the Guardians. Give credit to Bradish. He turned in another good start yesterday for Baltimore and was helped out by the fact that Bieber got tagged for 3 solo homers.
Gunnar looks incredible, by the way.
Did he homer too? Because I saw it was
no, he didn't homer. He just had a couple of really nice plays at shortstop. He's really, really good.
Maybe he'll be the next Ripken.
I think he's going to be what Pirates fans think O'Neal Cruz is.
Pirates fans think anybody is the next coming of anything because they have nothing to root for.
Just saying, though, Gunnar looked really, really good yesterday.
I was disappointed with Cleveland's performance at the plate. Like I said, I saw Bieber give up 2 solo homers in the first, both to right. And
first pitch was a home run by Mullins.
Yeah, and then was it Santander that homered afterwards?
Yeah.
I didn't see who hit the third one. I didn't look.
I think it was Mountcastle, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I mean, I've expected more from Cleveland. I mean, they're trying to hang on in the Central. Now they're just letting the Twins back into it. Everybody else. But I like Castillo here over Plesac because we've talked about Quantrill getting a ton of run support, and we know Plesac doesn't. And Castillo's pitched pretty well for the Mariners, even though he's only got one win.
Mariners also crushing in the last month and a half.
They have played very well. They just swept Detroit.
Yep.
The Phillies over the Giants. The Giants going the wrong way. They got swept by San Diego. Philadelphia looked good Wednesday after losing the first two. It's Gibson and Cobb. Any thoughts on that?
Over. If I was leaning anywhere, it'd be an over. But I do like plus money against Philly. The Giants, who have lost 6 or 7 in a row, should not be favored in this game.
The Red Sox team total over 3.5 in the first 5. You know who's pitching tonight, right?
It was my play of the day. Of course I know who's pitching. I got the Red Sox team total over.
What do you have the team total at?
Unfortunately, I got it early when the line was actually not in my favor. I got it at 5.5. Now I believe it's down to 5. So I know weather is allegedly causing money to come in on the under. I don't give a damn. You got Keuchel on the mound. I'm taking the over every time.
Yeah, I didn't know there was any. I didn't see anything about any weather forecast being an issue, but
I got it at 5.5, minus 104. I believe now it's 5 at minus 112. But I gotta fade Keuchel. I don't have a choice.
And Chase Brown from Illinois over 86.5 rushing yards. He ran for 151 last week against Wyoming, averaged almost 6 yards a carry for Illinois last season.
All they want to do is run the ball.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you want Tommy DeVito throwing it?
Of course not. DeVito should have retired by now. I can't believe he's still starting in D1. But
I'd wait for you to say you'd rather have Danny DeVito throwing it.
I probably would rather have Danny DeVito throwing it. But yeah, I'll go with the over with Brown as well. I think he breaks 100.
Yeah, I think it's do you have any faith in Indiana?
It's the only faith you really have is you're expecting a low-scoring game, and you're hoping that Illinois shoots themselves in the foot because they've been known to do that on occasion. I still am going to go with Illinois. I like the fact they played last week. They played really well last week, and they have an identity. I'm not sure what Indiana's identity even is.
Sucking.
But what is it? You had Penix as your quarterback for a couple years, so you tried to throw it a little bit. Now you don't really have many options. What is their identity? They really don't have one.
I remember when they had Peyton Ramsey playing quarterback.
That did not go well at the time either.
No, it did not.
But I like the over in that. I think it's a good play.
I will go look at shot in the dark here. Going to start with Corey Seager, over 1.5 total bases. Let's face it, the Rangers beat up everybody that Boston threw yesterday. If it wasn't for Texas's bullpen, they would have won the game.
Yep.
But somehow they gave up 6 runs in the last 2 innings to turn an 8-3 game into a 9-8 loss. Pete Alonso, over 1.5 total bases for the Mets against Josiah Gray and the Nationals. I don't care. It's Washington. They're going to have to go to that bullpen sooner or later. Scott, explain to me why Freddie Freeman is plus money when in his career against Darvish, he's 7 for 19 with 2 homers.
Because Darvish has the reputation of being good, even though he's been terrible on the road this season.
Are you surprised that he's at plus money?
Personally, yes. Freeman has dominated him in the past.
Xander Bogaerts over 1.5 total bases. 2 words for you folks.
Dallas
Scott
Keuchel.
Tillman, there they are.
Dallas Keuchel, yeah, there you go.
Goldschmidt over 1.5 total bases. Let's face it, Sampson has not been good of late. He's just a guy filling a spot in the rotation because the Cubs don't have anybody else. The Marlins, I know it's a bit of a reach here, but let's face it, Atlanta scored, 2, 3, and 3 against Colorado.
And they still won the series.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, that was against, Urena and
Cool,
and who the hell pitched Feltner.
Feltner. Yeah.
Yeah. Today they get Alcantara.
It's a bit of a step up in competition.
So I'll take the Marlins.
I'd probably take first 5 instead. But
True. It's Alcantara and Morton.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Springs over 5.5 strikeouts against the Yankees. Scott, anything you want to say in defense of the Yankees?
I guess the only thing that might screw you is they called up Peraza, so maybe Donaldson or any of these other guys might not play, which is a free strikeout that you don't have to deal with anymore. IKF makes contact, so I guess he's not one of those options. But I think Spring should pitch relatively well. I am concerned a little bit if he gets pulled quickly, but the Yankees have been so terrible at hitting lately. I kind of have to like the over.
Yeah, they pulled him about 20 pitches too early in his last start against the Yankees. He struck out 4, but he only threw, I think, 60 or 70 pitches in that game.
That's why I brought it up. That's the one thing that's concerning.
What do you think of Domingo Germán? Do you give the Yankees a chance to win this game in the Trop? Do you not have any faith because they can't hit?
I think it's close. I think they're going to lose. I think Tampa's probably going to win the series, so I'm going to go with Tampa tonight. But, yeah, Germán's been pitching well lately. Like, people can roast him. It's fair because of what happened off the field. But, yeah, he's actually been good for the last couple of starts. I just think that the Yankees, until they wake up offensively, I'm not going to pick
them. So you're saying that the division is going to be tighter come Labor Day? Come Labor Day.
I think there's actually a shot that this is a 3-game lead after the weekend. I think Tampa could sweep in this series.
Wow.
I think it's possible.
Hey, I'll take your word for it. You know the Yankees pretty well, still living up there.
Yep.
Alcantara over 6.5 strikeouts. He's faced Atlanta. What is it? I know he faced them in back-to-back starts earlier this year. In those starts, fanned 7, then he fanned 14.
That's solid numbers right there.
I mean, I know, and we just talked about how Atlanta scored 8 runs against Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Not sold on that. Dustin May over 5.5 strikeouts. I'm imagining they're going to stretch him out a little bit more. He's made 2 starts now. This will be his 3rd. I'd like to thank Dave Roberts for lying to everybody by saying that Kershaw was only going to throw 4 innings yesterday, and he threw 5. So, of course, Dave Roberts is showing that he can't count.
Yep.
And Manoah over 6.5 strikeouts. It's Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have to say anything else other than it's Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that definitely seems like that's all you need to say. Besides that, though, that's going to do it for the actual picks. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Just, have a good weekend and enjoy week 1 or 1.5 or whatever we're going to call this of the college football season. And just remember, less than a week from today, we will have the start of the NFL season.
Yes, we will. So it should be a very, very fun next couple of days or weeks leading up to the meat and potatoes of the sports betting season, which is going to be fun and hopefully profitable for all of us. But until next time, which will be Monday, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.